Do you mind discussing, the impact that you've seen with visualization and some of the different techniques, and also how you incorporate them into, the different student athletes that you're working with?
It is not an easy technique, and let's start there. Not every athlete, not every individual has that ability of visualizing and picturing those images in our minds. Like that is one of those skills that needs to be practiced, that little by little you build up the foundation and you start from there. And that requires, for it to be really effective, it requires a script that involves all the senses. So we try to make it as vivid as possible for the athlete to really experience it. And for me, the power of visualization comes from the fact that our brains cannot differentiate between what we imagine is happening, what is really happening, what we wish happened. We interpret all of those things at the same, like the same. So that is the power of visualization. You're putting or the athletes putting themselves in a situation, high pressure situation, end of a match situation, the start of a game, whatever that is that they're struggling with or that they want to improve. And there your brain starts interpreting as, okay, this is something that's happening, so we're going to work on this. And we work on those skills through the script. And hopefully when they encounter that situation, they feel like they have already lived it. So that's really the power of visualization. It helps with so many different things that it's very hard bringing it to a couple of skills that it helps improve. But yeah, first, it helps with skills acquisition and improvement. Research has shown that this constant mental practice of visualization, of picturing the athlete picturing themselves on the certain situation that they want to improve, or the skill that they want to improve, the technique, whatever it is, it allows them to actually improve their motor skills, their muscle memory. So it's kind of like it has been similar to actually physically practicing that skill. So first of all, it helps with that skill acquisition and improvement. Then, like I mentioned earlier, it allows athletes to enhance their self-performance and self-efficacy, so their belief that they can align their actions and they can behave in a way that's going to allow them to achieve their goals. So visualizing themselves performing confidently, that they perform whatever it is that they do in a successful way. This helps them boost their confidence and the general belief in their abilities of accomplishing it. So of course that's essential for peak performance. And then it also works a lot, like I mentioned earlier, with performance anxiety, and reducing that anxiety, reducing the level of stress that competing might cause to some athletes, because you can tailor the script to lead the athlete through that process of visualizing themselves coping effectively with a certain moment of the competition, or the competition, certain situations that may cause more stress than others, how they manage that anxiety, and how they're able to stay focused through all of that process and work well under pressure. So then, like I said, when they actually go through those situations, they feel like, oh, I've been here before, I've done this before, and I have been successful in the past. So let's go and do it again. And there are many ways of implementing visualization in sessions. In one-on-one sessions, I would say is the most effective, because like I said, every athlete is unique and the experiences that they go through are so unique. The challenges are unique not only to the individual, but to the sport itself. And what might cause stress and anxiety to one athlete from a specific sport, let's say a swimmer, the 200 free can cause a lot of anxiety to him, but then for another swimmer, it's not 200 free is easy. For me, what's really hard is the 500 free. What really causes me, they're like those sports that are so specific, especially talking about swimming, that they're so specific to their skills and what they kind of like specialize on. So that's what the importance of working on visualization in those one-on-one sessions, where you can tailor that script to the athlete's needs, to their goals, to their sport. And like I said, these exercises involve picturing themselves achieving their goals in a successful way, visualizing the specific skills or the techniques, rehearsing these strategies of how they cope with these challenges and actually implementing a lot of the mental skills that we teach them in that image, in that scenario, through the imagery. One of the places you could say where I encourage my athletes to add or practice visualization the most is as part of their pre-performance routine. So kind of like what you did in the bus, that was your pre-performance routine. Right before, stepping into the court, into the field, whatever their routine looks like, adding that imagery or that visualization technique. So a lot of times what I do is I record the script and I send it to them so they can listen to it. They take a moment to connect with that feeling of successfully achieving their goals and performing at their peak level. And I have found that to be very effective on my work with them.
You did an amazing job of just breaking down that topic a little bit more for everybody listening in, because again, I know that with visualization, it's not something that it's going to happen tomorrow where you're going to be able to just imagine everything going on and it's just going to work out perfectly that way. But nobody has a magic 8 ball that they can just shake and see into the future, right? How do you really see the role of sports psychology and even sports psychologists in general evolving over the next decade, give or take, especially with the evolution of technology, people becoming more accepting of what even sports psychology is and saying, hey, we should start implementing that, more people going that route, more people taking courses in sports psychology, pursuing that degree, as well as advanced research within that industry as well?
That is a question I am going to answer, of course, from my perspective and kind of like wishful thinking what I hope happens. But like you said, I don't have a magic ball. I would love to have that. I think definitely the most important factor that you mentioned through the question was the integration of technology to our practice. Because, of course, the more technology we have, the more tools that we also have, not only to analyze what's going on, but also to assess it and to implement them, to kind of like tackle so many different perspectives and so many different dimensions of what performance involves or what performance is. So definitely technology, we have seen already some of those advancements and we utilize them, but like wearable devices, virtual reality, biofeedback, so all of those different technologies that are just going to keep evolving so much, that of course allows us to, like I said, have this more holistic perspective or get other data that we couldn't if we didn't have that technology. But it always has the downside, of course, especially with wearable devices, like the impact that this might have on the athlete if they see that they didn't sleep as much as they needed to, or that they are not hydrating themselves as much as well as they need to. The calorie intake, they might get too obsessed with it. There's this downfall to the technology, of course, as anything else in life. But I do think that if we implement it in the right way, and it's just going to help us be better professionals. Another thing that we already see happening, and of course, thanks to the pandemic for that, is remote intervention. So now as sports psych consultants, we're able to work with teams that are not necessarily close to us geographically. So we have way more reach. We're able to see more athletes and have more sessions with athletes because of the online sessions. So I do see more of that happening. And also the fact that a lot of athletes, especially student athletes, they get home and they're tired, or even elite athletes, they don't want to be in the campus where they train, where they spend most of their day. They don't want to be there more time. So a lot of them would rather do it from home. So and yeah, a lot of them would rather work on their mental performance at home, where they feel more comfortable, where they're already, kind of like let their barriers down. Like there's also a downside to this, and is the fact that a lot of the techniques that we use were, like I said at the beginning, were not therapy. So it's not only talking, we do a lot of training with this technology that is necessary to do in person. But of course, it's a positive thing that we have more reach through online sessions. I see our field going to a more prominent awareness and kind of like cohesion, you could say, with the mental health in general. I am not from the States, so where I'm in Latin America, we don't divide what mental performance or sports psychology is from psychology. So we don't have that division here in the States. There is a lot of like, okay, what is mental performance? What is sports? The role of the sports psychologist consultant, and then the psychology. So you refer if they're having more serious like disorders, you could say, if they're clinically depressed or they have clinical anxiety, then you refer. In Latin America, we don't have that division, but I do see a lot of the mental health aspect becoming more prominent in our field. We, of course, recognize that it is a crucial component. And I always tell my athletes, well, you're a human being. Like, more than being an athlete, you're a human being. You're a person, and it is very hard for them to leave behind if they're going through personal situations, if they're going through personal challenges that might be related to family, to other stressors that they have other than their sport. It's very hard for them to just bottle that up, put that away, and get into, let's competitive mode and get into let's play and leave that outside of the court or leave that outside of the field or pool or whatever that is. It's hard for them. So I do see more of this mental health aspect coming into our sessions too, because they don't only bring concerns or issues that they're having with performance itself, but the when I start exploring this, the root of the issue is not related to sport, but it is impacting their performance. So in a way, of course, it is important that us as sports psych consultants have this holistic perspective, have more tools in our toolbox that we can tackle these different issues that are not necessarily performance related, but that end up affecting performance.
I think it's always interesting to hear, your thoughts as far as, hey, what's going to be beneficial down the road for these student athletes and just performers in general. But brings me to, my last question for you here, Patricia. Being in the role that you have, what piece of advice would you give to someone who's aspiring for a career in sports psychology?
First, I would say the basis, gain that education, get that training, pursue a solid educational foundation in psychology and kinesiology, specialize in the sports psych field, whether that's doing a master's degree, a PhD, whatever that PsyD, whatever that looks like. The academic career and the knowledge that you gain from it is crucial, because at the end of the day, we're evidence based. I mean, we're science, so all the knowledge that you gain from that academic career is extremely important, which is my second kind of like advice, to then seek that practical experience. And that has definitely been one of the most fulfilling experiences that I've had through grad school. It's having the opportunity of working with teams, of working with individuals, with athletes. So whether that is looking for internships, for volunteer jobs at sports setting, and learning how to talk to coaches, learning how to talk to athletes, how to interact, how to build that rapport and that connection is going to be also a great thing to start doing. There you're going to be able to see and identify way faster what are the needs of these athletes, how can I assess them, how can I build my interventions, of course based on the first one, based on my knowledge, how can I create my interventions so they're as efficient as possible. And then another piece of advice which has been also great is seek for mentorship, talk to other sports psychology consultants in the field that are more experienced and learn from them. And I have mentioned this throughout our conversation, but I think developing a diverse set of skills, like having a lot of tools in your toolbox, it's a big piece of what we do. Our job is very creative. It's about coming up with things in the moment, learning how to tailor those tools that you have in your toolbox to the specific needs of the athlete. So, kind of like coming up with things in the moment, it is so important, but you need to have those things in your toolbox to actually be able to implement them and come up with them. So developing that set of skills. And just to last but not least, networking is like in any other field extremely important. So building those relationships. We have ASP, which is the main organization for applied sports psychology. So building those relationships through ASP, that opens up just such a whole new world of opportunities that I know networking is important in every field. Ours is not an exception.
It was awesome, awesome, awesome information. I think that that is perfect stuff, perfect advice, really, because I think at the end of the day, a lot of it comes down to networking, but also just building yourself up. I like what you mentioned as far as having that toolbox, right? You can never acquire enough skills. There's always going to be something else to learn, something else to build off of, and you should always continue to seek learning. And so I think that's super cool, and you worded that perfect. But anyways, with that being said, I had an awesome, awesome time on this call. I have learned so much. It's been super beneficial, not only to me, but for everybody watching and listening. So I hope that they get the same out of it that I did, because boy, is my mind just blown to all these different topics, ideas that, I was probably at a kindergarten level at. But with that being said, guys, I'm going to link Patricia's social media handles below. Please, 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 make sure go follow her, say what's up. If you guys are, an athlete and something resonated with you, let her know. Same if you're a sports psychologist or even aspiring to go into that field, let her know. If you have any questions too, please feel free to reach out. But again, Patricia, thank you so much for your time. And it was great hearing a little bit more about you, your journey, and your role in sports psychology.